Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Packers Unscripted from Packers.com. I am Mike Spofford, joined, as always, by my partner in everything Packers, Wes Hodkowitz, coming to you here from our studios at Lambeau Field. And I should say welcome back. I apologize. I was not able to be in the office last Thursday to tape our second show of the week. But we aren't going to do that show, Wes, because that would be previewing the Steelers game. Instead, we are going to review a 35-25 Packers victory from Pittsburgh.
And I'm thankful that you are the upstanding gentleman that you are the person that you're willing to step out in front of this thing. As I told people on Twitter, what actually happened last Thursday was the money wasn't right. And sometimes you have to stand up for yourself. So I came down to the studio on Thursday. You were all set. You were ready to go. I told Hannah, our producer. I told the construction crew. I told everybody that would listen. Wes has certain demands to do this show. I've been doing it for 10 seasons now. If these demands are not met, there is no show. Fortunately, the two sides came back to the table on Friday. We got a deal worked out, and Packers Unscripted is back today. But, Mike, I appreciate you trying to cover for me. That's the man that you are.
Well, yeah, there is one of us covering for the other here. But that aside,
yeah, the Packers won.
35-25, my friend. And I don't know where you want to start with this one. Obviously, we weren't able to talk about all of the Jordan Love, Aaron Rodgers, that main storyline. But as this game unfolded, what it really became about was, quite frankly, the Packers getting up off the mat in the second half. Down 16-7 at halftime on the road. And Green Bay answered the bell, and suddenly Jordan Love got hot. The offense got hot, and 28 points in the second half turned into quite the road victory for Green Bay.
I want you to talk about whatever you want to talk about in the show. As our digital department reminds me, this is your show. It's not my show. But I want to say this, and this is where I want to start, and then you can take it from there. We can discuss anything you want to discuss after this. There was one story in this game to me. It was your column. It was your top of the five things, takeaways. It was Jordan Love. Because I said it beforehand, this kid is as cool and as calm and collected as you will find as a professional athlete. I'm not talking about quarterback. I'm not talking about an NFL player. I'm talking when you make up the prototype for an NFL football player, a basketball player, a hitter at the bottom of the 9th inning or the 18th inning, as you were just telling me a couple minutes ago.
Yeah.
You want to have the type of disposition that Jordan Love has. And the thing, and if if I would have been bouncing ideas off of you, this meant nothing to Renee Gabriel, our social media manager who was with me in Pittsburgh, but what kept going through my mind as I watched that game, it wasn't about Aaron Rodgers. It was about where Jordan Love was 2 years ago when we were in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
In the way that he played in that setting. 29 of 37, 360 yards, 3 touchdowns, a 134.2 passer rating, which is the highest of in his regular season of his NFL career. Jordan Love showed that when the pressure is there, he is an absolute diamond. And to see the maturation of a football player, a guy that the Packers committed themselves 2.5 years ago, that was beautiful to watch. Oh, and by the way, his mentor, his predecessor, was on the other sideline.
Yeah.
That's some big time stuff.
It was a crucible, so to speak, when it comes to everything that was on Jordan Love in this game. And yeah, to walk into the locker room at halftime, you've only got 7 points on the board. That wasn't all his fault. Brandon McManus unfortunately missed a couple field goals. One of them was really long, just came up a little bit short. Mm-hmm. Then when the Packers are looking for that momentum boost right at the end of the first half, like they got in Arizona, but then it didn't happen. McManus unfortunately missed again. To walk into that locker room with only 7 points on the board at halftime and then to come out and do what he did in the second half, the 20 straight completions. It started on that final possession, the last 34 seconds of the first half. Completed 4 straight passes to get in position for the field goal, which unfortunately was missed. But those 4 completions started the streak of 20 in a row. And that tied Brett Favre's franchise record, which he set on Thanksgiving Day in Detroit in 2007. So that was, if my math is right, 18 years ago. And what was most impressive to me about Love's performance was that in the first half, every time it got to third down, the Steelers blitzed. And the Packers didn't have a whole lot of answers for that. In the second half, they found the answers. Jordan Love stood in the pocket. He took the hits. He threw up a couple of passes that look sort of like prayers in a sense. But when the defense is blitzing and you know that they're compromised in their coverage, you can put it up there and give your guys a chance to go make a play.
He trusted him.
And that's what he did. And his teammates came through for him. Tucker Kraft, Christian Watson, they made those plays. And suddenly 20 straight completions turns into 5 consecutive scoring drives, 3 touchdowns, 2 field goals. It was a tour de force performance by Jordan Love. If it had happened anywhere, the fact, as you said, that it happened on the road in a stadium where he had kind of a rough game and had lost a couple of years ago with a couple of interceptions down the stretch, and the fact that it was his mentor and predecessor's game against his former team, and that was the quarterback matchup. A performance for the ages, quite frankly, by Jordan Love.
And the way that he bounced back and led that team in the second half, I think speaks to the growth and maturation of a leader, of a guy wearing that captain's patch now. You're right. Things were not trending in the right direction. This wasn't like Arizona where you salvaged something at the end of the half.
Right.
It felt like you had some momentum.
Right.
Packers had 0 momentum. Oh, and by the way, Pittsburgh had a chance to double up coming out of the second half. Credit to the defense. They got off the field. Some wild stuff happened on the officiating front. There's so much to talk about this matchup. I don't even really want to get into any of that.
Yeah.
But that being said, the Packers got the ball back, and when Jordan Love needed to make a play, what did he do? He went back to the guy that has been his most consistent, reliable target this season, and that's Tucker Kraft. For Tucker, a week after making an absolute game-changing, game-altering catch in Arizona, to, in that instance, catch a 59-yard pass and run upfield, and as Next Gen Stats said, plus 36 above expectation for the amount of yards that he pulled out of that thing. And then he was asked afterwards, well, did you feel like there might have been some OPI? And he's like, yeah, there was also some holding going on there too. So whatever it takes to make the play happen. And I even tweeted during the game, I had a hard time understanding the difference between the cornerback on Kraft on that play, and then what happened with Keyshawn Nixon on another play where he was in trail coverage. But be that as it may, one of the fun moments being in the press box, there was some, I don't know if it was staffers from the Steelers or some people that obviously had a vested interest in the success of the Pittsburgh Steelers that were directly behind where we were sitting in the press box. And after Kraft caught his second touchdown later on in the game, the 24-yarder, someone even said, Is he a receiver? Like, is that guy? What does he play for them? Like, they don't. And I loved at that exact moment on the television camera, Tucker Kraft looking into the camera and saying, "I do this." It felt to me like last year was the breakout, right? We all saw what he could be.
Yeah, it was the arrival for sure.
Now the national public, the people that have fantasy football teams, the people that are just casual viewers, they know who Tucker Kraft is. And Mike, I could list off all the superlatives for you, but the fact is that the Packers hit on a good one. And this guy, man, he is going to be something special. Yeah, and when you look at, you mentioned the game-changing reception last week in Arizona, which was on the 4th and 2, the gutsy call to go for it as opposed to kick the tying field goal. And Tucker Kraft was actually the third option on that play. Jordan Love found him. Well, when there was a crucial 4th and 1 in this game, he wasn't the third option, my friend. He was getting that play was designed for Tucker Kraft to get the first down. Just another example of the steps forward that are being taken. And then when he runs, whether you want to call it a slant or a Texas route, kind of out and in, and you watch big number 85. I mean, what is he, about 255, 59. 260 pounds, right in that range? And he's running away from the safety to the goal line. They couldn't catch him.
You know, it was like a 5-yard pass, and he turns it into a 24-yard touchdown because he turned on the Jets and beat everybody to the goal line. Just tremendous. And 131 of his 143 receiving yards were after the catch. Excuse me. He's becoming a big time weapon, and we knew this was happening, and it just happened to come now in a nationally televised game. But oh, by the way, along with all those receiving numbers and everything that he's doing, he's also one of the best blocking tight ends in the NFL. This guy is a complete player at his position.
He's insane. It is wild to watch. And somebody made a remark too. Well, how could he have 131 yards after the catch? Dude, go back and watch the film. See how close to the line of scrimmage he was when he caught basically every one of his passes. The 59-yarder was probably the most he was downfield.
Yeah.
A couple of those he might have even been in the backfield when he started the play.
Right, and that's how the differential between his yardage and his yards after catch was only 12, because if he catches a swing pass that, you know, is 4 or 5 yards in the backfield, he's getting the yards after catch from where he catches it, not from the line of scrimmage, whereas the receiving yards are from the line of scrimmage. So it's sort of like on some of those plays, the gap between the yak and the actual receiving yard starts to close because he's getting some of the yards after catch actually behind the line of scrimmage. Be that as it may, just another incredible outing from a player who's just coming into his own. I mean, what's Tucker? I mean, we know he's his
24 years
third
old,
year.
Mike.
24. I was about to say 25.
25 next month.
25 next month. Wow.
What were you doing when you were 24 years old?
I was almost on my way to cover my first Super Bowl. But,
there you go.
But yeah. On top of that, though, when it comes to this Packers passing game, Christian Watson got back into action. We had talked about this for a long time, Wes, that we were sort of thinking, whether it was a long ways out or as things got closer, hey, think of Christian Watson maybe being back sometime in November. And I think you were the one who said it first. If he's able to come back and play in a game in October and get into action, consider it a bonus. Well, this wasn't just a bonus. This was a big time impact. 4 catches, 80+ yards. He delivered. And for all of the concern about, the turf in Pittsburgh and all of these issues, and is that really safe for him and whatnot, I will confess he played a lot more snaps than I thought he would.
He played more than the Packers thought he would.
Yeah, in his first game back. I didn't expect to see him on the field that much.
Yeah.
But boy, he looked like he never left. I guess that's the best way I can put it.
So a couple things of this. One, I want to just I did it in Inbox. I'm going to do it on our show now. Give a huge kudos to Chris Keene, Packers equipment staff. There was a little bit of slipping going on. You probably saw it on TV, the first few series. But, man, the Packers figured that turf out quick. Pittsburgh played. They did do a resodding of it, but then Pittsburgh played on it. The college played on it Saturday.
Yeah, the day before.
And it looked rough. No disrespect to the fine folks at Acrisure Stadium and in that field. That is one of my favorite road trips in terms of just the human beings that you're dealing with. The field was in tough shape. It was comparable to some of those rough years in Chicago. The Packers made it work. And, yes, there was a little bit of probably more external worry and concern about Christian making his return on that field, but the Packers, from an equipment standpoint, were good to go. From a mental standpoint, Christian Watson was set. I was talking with him afterwards. A bunch of the media were grabbing him after the game, and he said he really tried to keep things as normal as possible going into this one. He did his usual routine, which is funny to think about it because it really had been 9 months since he's been in this thing again.
Yeah.
But, all the way from what he's eating, resting, playing video games. And then he said it was really when he was packing up his bag to go to the stadium, it kind of hit him like, I'm playing football today.
Yeah.
And Matt LaFleur was asked about that, about what his snap count was. Rob Domofsky's Stats and Info was reporting that it was 36 official snaps. I never got a chance to look at the game book. I could right now, but I'm too lazy. But the fact is that he started off 2 catches, modest 24 yards, but kind of like Kraft a week earlier in Arizona, when there was some gotta-have-him type catches, gotta-have-him type plays. Watson was, again, that primary target for Jordan Love. The 33-yard catch on 3rd down probably was the most critical in this comeback, being able to not only exact momentum, extract momentum, but also just given the situation where Green Bay really needed points at that moment, and he came through. The other thing I loved about it, he said that was actually the second time, or before that, Love had changed the play twice already, and then they made another adjustment, and I mean, my goodness, I knew it was a cool throw and catch from the press box, but when I finally got to see the video afterwards, you realize how Love snuck that thing in there.
Yeah,
that was a heck of a throw.
Yeah, and his body was going one way. He kind of had to throw it back across his body. And when I saw it, and I mentioned this in Monday morning's Insider Inbox, I actually think Love wanted to put more on it. I think if he's able to get more on the throw, I think Watson is running away from the defense, and essentially is able to make a much easier kind of clear catch, probably for a touchdown there. But with Love having to throw the ball back across his body, there's only so much you can get on the ball. But again, it was against a blitz. So he bought some time. He knows the coverage is compromised in terms of numbers, and he knows he's got a 6'4" wide receiver down there who's going to try to make him right if he gives him a chance to make a play, and he did that. Just a great return for Watson. One more thought on the offense before we shift gears to the defense, because there's plenty to talk about there too. But Emanuel Wilson provided a spark. Both in the running game and with catching some passes. I believe he ended up with over 80 total yards combined rushing and receiving in this game. And what I liked the best about Wilson was he was running hard. Mm-hmm. Like, he was taking it to anybody who was trying to tackle him. And that kind of sent a message in a way that, Emanuel Wilson doesn't take the field and look like a backup. No. He takes the field ready to deliver some punishment and be a big part of this thing. And we've seen, I think, really since the Dallas game right before the bye week, we've seen Emanuel Wilson's growth in his role in this offense, and that's only going to mean good things for the long haul here with Josh Jacobs and what they want to do in the backfield.
It is the ultimate example of undrafted development, what's happened with Wilson, because the Packers saw a skill set there when they claimed him. Because I've said it once, I've said it before, but the Packers claimed him in May. Yeah, he signed originally with Denver as an undrafted free agent. He's only there for a couple days, I think, and then they let him go. And he ends up being in Green Bay. And you always think of those guys when they arrive sort of late, okay, is that a quote-unquote camp body? And Wilson quickly proved, especially with that preseason performance against Cincinnati, that he was more than that, right?
Yeah.
That this is a real player. But his maturation and growth, I mean, it's crazy the type of, not only the player he's become, but the person that he's become. And as Matt LaFleur said, he was dealing with a little bit on his heart in that game. I don't know all the details of it. You could see some of it on social media. But he played with a purpose. And I actually shortchanged him. I was talking in the locker room afterwards. I grabbed him, and I'm like, 77 total yards. It was actually 87. I'm bad at math. Sorry, only 26 on the ACT in that one. But the fact is that, as he said, when this offense, they came out of that second half, they need to make a play. 77 of his total yards did come in the second half.
Yeah.
He only had 10. He said it was a little bit of a slow start for him in the offense. But he knows basically three things. When 10's going, he's going, as he said. And when they make plays, this offense starts humming. And in Wilson's case, when he starts getting downhill, he builds steam quickly.
Yeah.
And he has been nobody anticipated Emanuel Wilson being the number 2 back to Josh Jacobs. We thought last year it was going to be A.J. Dillon. This year, obviously, Marshawn Lloyd was back. Chris Brooks is up there. And Wilson sort of faded in the background for a little bit. Well, the last 2-3 games, he's been back up into the forefront. Jacobs dealing with the calf injury. I think he has played really, really solid and showed that, yes, to your point, I think that's a great point you made. This isn't just some random undrafted guy. This isn't just a backup running back. This is a guy that when he's on the field, his mentality is that I am the dude.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll take a quick break and pay some bills and hear from our sponsors. Then we'll come back and talk about the Packers' defensive performance in this game. But right now, a word from our sponsors. SiriusXM NFL Radio delivers hard-hitting analysis and up-to-the-minute NFL news that true football fanatics need 24/7, 365. At Cousin Subs, we have something for everyone, like our Wisconsin cheese curds, mac and cheese, golden fries, and creamy shakes, all paired with your favorite sub or sub in a bowl. Cousin Subs, 50 plus years of better. Pit Boss Grills, the official grill of Packers tailgating at Lambeau or at your house. Take your game day to the next level with a Pit Boss wood pellet grill. Pit Boss Grills available at Menards. Hey Packers fans, we always knew Lambeau Field was a wonder, but now it's official. Learn more about all the wonders of Wisconsin at travelwisconsin.com/wonders. Welcome back to Packers Unscripted. Wes, on the defensive side of this game in Pittsburgh. Again, kind of much like the first half on offense, there were rough moments on the defensive side. There were some penalties, and Keyshawn Nixon was having some trouble in coverage and whatnot. But the Packers defense 3 times in the first half was able to hold the Steelers to long field goal attempts. So Pittsburgh had just 16 points on the board at halftime. And against a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers, and you could almost see Rodgers, even though the Steelers were winning, they were going into halftime, 16-7. You could almost see the frustration on Rodgers' face that he knew that the Steelers weren't finishing these drives, right? That they were leaving points out on the board because they kept sending Boswell out for these long kicks. The Packers defense hung in there, only allowed the 1 touchdown in the first half, forced a bunch of field goals, and then in the second half, they really started to make things a lot more difficult for Rodgers.
I got to ask you, because you're watching the game on TV. I was in the press box.
Yeah,
but
this particular game.
This was going in my head as I'm watching this, and it would have been the exact question. These are all the things I wanted to ask you during the game that I couldn't.
Sorry, yeah.
Why did Pittsburgh stop running the ball?
That is a huge question.
Do you know how many times Pittsburgh ran the ball in the second half? Do you know?
I don't know. I don't know, but I know because I looked it up and I put it in. I put it in Insider Inbox. 11 of their first 12 snaps in the second half, Rodgers was dropping back to pass. They quit running the ball with Warren, and it played into the Packers' hands, quite frankly.
So here's the difference in the game. Yes, let's talk about Rodgers here in a second. Here's the difference in the game. Pittsburgh ran the ball really, really well in the first half, and the Packers did not. The second half, the Packers stayed committed to the run, found some explosive plays there with Emanuel Wilson, with Josh Jacobs in space. Josh Jacobs, again, is probably the best goal line inside
another rushing touchdown for number 8.
What an insane guy this guy is, right? Yep. Inside the 5-yard line, he finds a way. And Pittsburgh ran the ball 3 times for 12 yards. 12 yards. I don't get it. Maybe that's just the old Aaron Rodgers. I covered them, and they had a blueprint that was working for them. They were not finishing drives. Chris Boswell is the most underrated kicker in the National Football League, but they were scoring points and they were being effective. Everything stopped because it's not that they weren't running the ball in the fourth quarter when the Packers pulled ahead. They weren't running the ball when they had the lead.
Yeah.
It's mind-boggling to me. That said, that approach allowed the Packers pass rush to get going. It allowed the secondary to seemingly settle down.
Yep.
Carrington Valentine, who was making the start on the perimeter, I thought had a really strong game. Matt LaFleur backed that up on Monday. Quay Walker was making plays. Edgerrin Cooper got a major takeaway. Packers defense got its momentum built in the second half, and to this day, I still don't understand what the Steelers were trying to do to assist Aaron Rodgers, who wasn't perfect by any means the first half, but was efficient and was taking advantage of opportunities.
Yeah, and Rodgers was certainly not putting the ball in harm's way. He was definitely aware of Micah Parsons at every moment, and was protecting himself a lot from Parsons. Rashawn Gary got 1 sack in the first half. Then in the second half, we saw both Gary and Parsons get sacks. At the end of the day, the Steelers were just 1 out of 10 on third down, which you hold Aaron Rodgers to 1 out of 10 on third down.
A lot of third and
longs. You're doing something right, and it was a lot of third and longs. You mentioned the takeaway as well. That came in a big moment where the Packers had the lead, but the game was certainly very much in the balance, and Rodgers looking to put together a drive, takes the check down throw to Kenneth Gainwell. Edgerrin Cooper punches it out. Javon Bullard recovers. The Packers turn that into a field goal, add to their lead. Just keeping that second half momentum on Green Bay's side with that takeaway. You mentioned two guys that Matt LaFleur also talked about on Monday. I have a story on Packers.com from late in the day on Monday about it. Quay Walker and Carrington Valentine, I thought, were two of the defensive heroes in this game for the Packers. Walker played, I thought, his usual solid game in terms of being a presence at the line of scrimmage, chasing sideline to sideline. That's what Quay Walker does. He laid a couple of big hits in this game. I mean, he to put his shoulder pads down and powered into a couple of guys. But that moment in the fourth quarter where DK Metcalf, I don't know what Metcalf was up to. He's clearly trying to provoke Quay Walker.
Provoked with a poke.
Sticks his fingers through his face mask as though to poke him in the eye. And then when that doesn't get a reaction from Walker, he grabs his face mask and kind of yanks on it, tugs on it a little bit. That doesn't get a reaction from Walker, and the flags fly, and the Steelers go from a 3rd and 2 when they're only down by 10 points with 10 minutes left. Game is still very much at hand. Down by 10 minutes left. A 3rd and 2 turns into a 3rd and 17 because Quay Walker keeps his composure. He admitted the rookie Quay Walker of 2022, who had gotten ejected from games a couple of times, would not have been able to contain himself in that way. But Quay Walker has come a long way. As Matt LaFleur said, he's wearing that C on his chest on the defense for a reason. He was voted a team captain defensively for a reason. That was a big moment in the game, and my hat is off to number 7 because I don't know if somebody tried to stick their fingers through my face mask if I would have been able to just walk away.
Sorry. Another couple things to that.
Yeah.
What happened the 2 plays before that incident? Do you remember?
I don't.
2 Jalen Warren runs. 2 of the 3 runs in the second half came on that series.
And it was 3rd and 2.
And his last one
was going to be 3rd
his last one was a 5-yard run that was going to set up 3rd and 2.
3rd and 2.
That instead ended up basically being a 10-yard loss for them. This shows you the discipline aspect of it. When Matt LaFleur is talking about playing smart football, right? That's the type of thing you got to account for. Because here's the thing. There's going to be enough bad calls against you. There's going to be enough things that tilt against you. You can't make it obvious. You can't give officials a reason to throw that flag. I'll be honest with you, with the way that game was trending with Sean Hockley, no disrespect, but I was actually a little nervous when I was like, please tell me they're not going to come up with some cockamamie. Am I allowed to say? Is that a good? Is that
that's a good word. Sure I like that word.
Cockamamie excuse for offsetting penalties. If Quay Walker grabs the face mask of DK Metcalf, don't even care about what happened with Quay 3 years ago. If he does that, it could have been the most stand-up citizen. A lot of people would have had that reaction. Offsetting penalties.
Right. Yep, no doubt.
He stands in there. The officials see it. They throw the flag. You let the officials handle it. 3rd and 17, Rodgers drops back. And what happens yet again? Rashawn Gary sacks him. 2 Rashawn Gary sacks in this game. 3 overall, including the one for minus 10 yards at the beginning of the fourth quarter with Micah Parsons.
Yeah.
The Packers' defense is a good defense. And when you give them opportunities, you're going to find success. And Mike, I'll be honest with you, again, another thing I was telling Renee during the game that she probably was like, why does this guy keep talking to me? But it was the idea that
it's because you didn't have me to talk to. I'll be there. I'll be at the rest of the
I'm looking
games.
forward to it.
This was a one-off. I don't like to miss games, but I had to skip this road trip,
which is understandable.
Yeah.
Who wants to spend a day and a half in a hotel? But here's the thing. So Renee is working on a thing, and I said to her, I was like, listen, no disrespect to Aaron Rodgers, but these were the situations where when Rodgers, it would be a negative penalty like that, then Rodgers goes back in the pocket, he holds onto the ball too long, and it's a sack. The Green Bay Packers were the beneficiary of that in this one. You could see it, and you could see that turn in the fourth quarter when Rodgers is waiting and waiting and waiting for something to happen downfield, and it doesn't. The pressure gets home. It was the snowball that kept moving. The way I looked at this game as a whole, Mike, was it was like a track meet where it was two guys, 2 people running a 3,200-meter relay. The Pittsburgh Steelers got out to an early lead there up to that mile mark, but Green Bay outpaced them. And once they got to the 6th lap, the 7th lap, they just went. And I think that was probably the biggest takeaway from this. The game against Arizona, they showed a lot of moxie. finding a way to win that late. In this game, it showed them that, okay, we're going to get this lead and we're not going to give it back. We're going to take it.
Yeah, they stayed in command of this game. I do want to mention Carrington Valentine as well. You already brought him up once. We learned from Matt LaFleur that essentially what's been going on at cornerback for, it sounds like, the last couple of weeks now has been essentially an in-practice competition for playing time, primarily between Nate Hobbs and Carrington Valentine. LaFleur suggested Keyshawn Nixon would be in that mix now as well. But in Arizona, Nate Hobbs basically played the entire game and Valentine only played a couple snaps on defense. It flipped in Pittsburgh. Valentine basically played all the snaps on defense, all but one maybe. And Nate Hobbs only played a few snaps defensively. Valentine answered the call in this one. That pass breakup on the seam route to the end zone to DK Metcalf, that was pretty impressive. And that was a 4-point play. The Steelers end up settling for a field goal, kept them out of the end zone. They only get 3 instead of 7 there because of that breakup on Metcalf. Almost came close to a really good breakup actually on Washington, the big tight end, but then he got called for the pass interference. I mean, that's a 280-pound tight end that he's trying to handle there. But then almost had another big breakup of Roman Wilson in the end zone. It actually was originally called an incomplete pass. The replay assist changed it to a touchdown. I think they got that call right. But Valentine, what Matt LaFleur talked about, he was impressed with Valentine's, just his competitiveness, how he challenged everything. There were the best phrase from Matt LaFleur on Monday in talking about Valentine's play. He said there were no gimmies. He just didn't give them anything. He made them earn anything that went his way. And we'll see where things go from here now. We don't get to watch 11 on 11, the team snaps during practice, like during the week. The media, we aren't there. So how things are going to unfold every week in practice in terms of who's leading the competition and who's going to get the snaps, we're just going to be finding out on Sunday for a while here how this is going to go. But hats off to Carrington Valentine for a really, really solid performance after what I thought were, going back to the Dallas game when Dak Prescott really got rolling in the second half in Dallas. Valentine had some rough moments just like all the other cornerbacks did. So I thought it was a big step forward for him.
It's a tough deal, Michael, because we saw the rotation go back into effect at right guard in this one, right? Sean Ryan ended up playing more snaps than Jordan Morgan in this one, 35 to, I think, what was it? 29. Packers, including that Dallas game, were trying to find ways to sort of rotate in Valentine. It's not the easiest thing to do at cornerback.
Yeah.
It does, and this goes back to 2014. I can remember when the Packers had a surplus of cornerbacks when Tramon Williams was healthy, Casey Hayward was healthy, Devon House was healthy, and Sam Shields was also there. They didn't know who to play with how much nickel they do. So they had Tramon moved inside. They started doing different things when Casey was out. That's kind of where they're at right now. But sometimes it is just better to let a guy go out there, get into a rhythm, establish it, not break it, as long as he's not as long as he's healthy, not injured. And I thought that's what we saw here. I thought Carrington was given the full workload and he was allowed to be himself out there. It's a tough spot to be in, though, because obviously Nate just got a pretty big contract. I think everybody believes he can do a lot of good things. Matt LaFleur said, they have a lot of confidence in him. He's had some of these knee issues, but overall, he's healthy and available.
Hey, and if this is a reset for Hobbs, after you mentioned the injuries, he had a rough game in Arizona. Everybody knows that. But if this allows him to reset, the Packers defense will be better off for it in the long run.
Yeah, and you kind of wonder, too, when a guy goes that, because it's not like he dealt with that knee he had it during training camp, but then he was added to the injury report on Friday, and then he ends up playing on it. Be that as it may, everyone's injured. I get that. I just think that when you have somebody like Carrington in the fold, too, that you and I, for a number of years now, going back to really his rookie year, we've talked about this guy having starting caliber attributes.
Yeah.
Finding ways to get him going and finding ways to keep all these guys involved, because, Mike, here is the thing. It's week 9 now. There's going to be more injuries through the course of the season. There's going to be things that are going to pop up, and you're going to need Nate Hobbs. You're going to need Sean Ryan. You're going to need Jordan Morgan. You're going to need Carrington Valentine. You're going to need those guys to get through the season. And even to bring it back to our intro with Christian Watson, right? Christian, there was all these people that always say, well, if you add Christian Watson, you got Dobbs and you got Golden and you got Tucker and you got all this. You can't look at it like that. You have to be looking at it from the standpoint of a recurring calf injury for Dontavian Wicks rears its ugly head again.
Yep.
And now he's unavailable for this game. And you don't have Jaden Reed because he broke his collarbone last month. Christian Watson comes back into the fold at exactly the right time the Packers need him, where they could use a healthy receiver. That's how this game is played a lot of times. So, yes, what happened on Sunday does not dictate the future. Things can change quickly. Sometimes destiny has a role in that. But the nice part about it is the Packers have some depth there, and they have a lot of guys that have played a lot of football now that they can rely on.
Yeah, well, we've more than filled the show here. I do want to say, with regard to officiating issues from this game and from Arizona, I want to revisit some of this stuff on our next show.
Yeah, let's do it.
I want to take some time on Thursday's show to talk about some of this stuff. The last thing before we go, I just want to give everybody the rundown on where things are. The Packers in the NFC North on top at 5-1-1. The Detroit Lions, who were on the bye, at 5-2. The Bears and the Vikings both lost on the road to AFC teams this past week. So the Bears are 4-3. The Vikings are 3-4. As far as the rest of the NFC is concerned, the Packers, statistically, at 5-1-1 are still in the top spot. Philadelphia and Tampa Bay right behind at 6-2. Then you have the Rams and the Seahawks, who were both on their bye this past week. They are both 5-2. And then the 49ers, who lost to an AFC team. The Packers got some good results this week as far as these AFC-NFC matchups. San Francisco lost to the AFC's Houston Texans. They are now 5-3. Not a lot has been sorted out yet. Certainly, and we're technically not even at the halfway point of the season here. But when you look at where the Packers are, you look at what else is going on in the NFC. This was the type of road win that is going to carry you a little ways, right? I mean, because This was one of those that's a coin flip going in, and the Packers were able to come away with it impressively, and hopefully now 3 of the next 4 games at home. Hopefully this is where the Packers can start building on something.
You had to move on from that Cleveland loss, and the best way to do it is to pick up 2 wins in the AFC North right away. Green Bay did that, and if I may, just a couple other things I want to touch on very quickly. You see Carson Wentz go down with the Vikings. Now, it looks like J.J. McCarthy will be back. We'll talk about that probably on Thursday as well, but they get absolutely routed by the Chargers in that game. The Baltimore Ravens, who are at 1-5, but I think we're actually still the favorite going into that against the 4-2 Bears, despite the fact that Lamar Jackson wasn't playing.
Yeah, that surprised me, but the odds makers, they know things sometimes.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, I'm talking about both from the Ravens' point of view and Scoot Huntley's point of view. Tyler Huntley should be on the Ravens forever. Like, as long as Lamar Jackson's the quarterback there, Huntley should be his backup.
Yeah.
It's gotten really cute the last few years. Huntley, moved around a couple spots. The Ravens were trying different quarterbacks behind. Huntley's the one that can keep you on your program.
Yep.
And he played an exceptional game against the Bears.
He did.
Caleb Williams did not, as he continues to kind of ride those waves here in year 2. There were so many things, and we were running out of time here, but Houston beating, as you mentioned, beating San Francisco, Denver beating Dallas, Kansas City beating Marcus Mariota and the Commanders. Just win games, man. Yep. And when the AFC, NFC matchups kind of fall that way, it allows nature to sort of take its course. Because here's the thing. Every playoff team right now in the standings, you want to call them, are at 5 wins through 8 weeks, or 6. I mean, they have at least 5.
Yeah.
And you need to pick up as many of these things as possible, because there's going to be teams that just get knocked off along the way. There's going to be teams that are right there with the Packers that will lose to a Cleveland Browns. But the Packers already used that get-out-of-jail-free card. Yeah. Now you need to play clean football, and that continues this Sunday against the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah, and we will talk about the Carolina Panthers as well as some of those other issues on our next show, because we've gone way overtime. But we only had one show last week, so we're allowed to go overtime on our first show this week. But please do continue to follow all of our coverage of the team on Packers.com. For Wes, I am Mike. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. We will see you next time.